Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good whatever it is, wherever you are, ladies, gentlemen, whoever is watching and joining the show. Welcome to Nerd Week Live. Once again, brought to you by the folks from Nerd Caliber, or in this case, the folk from Nerd Caliber. Unlike last week, where we had like a ridiculously large team, it's just me tonight. So you'll probably be getting a quicker show since there won't be a lot of back and forth discussion. But I'm looking forward to lots of good comments in the chat that I can respond to. And with that, I think we're going to do some welcomes and we'll jump right into the show. Welcome. Thanks for that name. Uh, Mervinsley Castagnol, welcome. Rebecca Arias, welcome. Breeze YT, welcome. Everybody, welcome to the show. As we go through our topics, if you got anything to ask, just chat it in there. I'll be paying attention to that, and we'll try to, or I'll try to answer your questions. So we're going to start right off the bat with our very first topic, and actually, so I just realized as I was looking through my introduction or my description of the event that said we were going to talk about the movie Scoob, and then realized that probably everybody's seen this news and didn't include it in my list. So I'm just going to wrap it up real quickly before we jump into stuff that we actually have images for. Scoob, if you haven't heard, was the animated new version of Scooby-Doo, the origin story, and it got at first delayed to indefinite because a release date because of the pandemic, and now we know that it's going direct to digital on May 19th. May 15th. Sorry about that. So on May 15th, you can go and get it on demand, probably Amazon Prime, wherever it is that you get on demand, to buy it for a whopping $25 or rent it for 2 days for $20. So yeah, all right. I'll wait for that to hit something cheaper. Much as I'm kind of looking forward to it, only because of the fact that this will expand what could be the start of a Hanna-Barbera cartoon universe, which I think would be cool because you can throw a lot of interesting cartoons in there, but not for $20. Shakui Todoroki, welcome to the show. So now we're going to get to our first bit of news that actually has an image, and that popped up on your screen right there is one of these screen grabs from, not one of these spoiler screen grabs, and we'll get into that, from Last of Us 2. In fact, we got that the last time we talked about it, which was weeks ago. The news is that we actually have a probably, or at least official announced, release date for Last of Us Part 2. And that is going to be June 19th of this year. So, originally it was supposed to come out in February, and then, of course, the pandemic hit. They pulled all of the Last of Us stuff out of PAX East at the end of February, claiming that the pandemic didn't allow people to travel. There was some speculation at that time that it actually wasn't really done enough for it to be shown off. Then the next announced release date was going to be in May. Skylar, sorry, welcome to the show. Late May, and turns out that's not really true either. They finally have now announced that it's going to be June 19th, 2020, and that's official and firm, at least as of right now, until they delay it a third time. Hopefully they won't. Hopefully it'll come out when everybody, when Sony now says it will, when Naughty Dog says it will, that this will be out there, and you can play it, and it looks awesome. And if you're interested, please don't do any searches for Last of Us 2 cutscenes or anything like that on the internet, because somebody leaked pretty much every cutscene and a lot of the major gameplay moments that are in the game that basically contain tons of plot spoilers. That's out there, folks. If you're interested in playing Last of Us 2 and you do not want to see it spoiled for you, stay away. Don't do any of those searches. Be very careful about what sort of channels you watch. If somebody, if you're a YouTube fan and you go on some, gamer channel where they happen to even mention Last of Us 2, if they don't say within the first couple of seconds, we're spoiling it with these cutscenes, just go away. Don't do it. Unless you like spoilers, and then, jump on those cutscenes all you want. That's, up to you. Just don't spoil it for anybody else, because, we hates that. I personally hate that, but many other people hate that. So yeah, that's it. There you go. June 19th. You can get it. Again, assuming they don't actually delay it one more time. Next piece of news. This one I'm actually more excited about than I thought. So that is, of course, Pinhead from Hellraiser that just scared you when he jumped up on the screen. And the news here is that we talked a while ago when it was first announced that HBO was going to be making a series based on the Hellraiser franchise. What the news here now is that they have tapped David Gordon Green, who was the the director behind the most recent Halloween remake, to run this show, which is pretty cool. I understand that did well. It was Luminous. Welcome to the show. That was fairly well received both critically and popularly. But I didn't remember seeing this when we first covered it, or if I did, it didn't stick with me. The series will be written by two people, one of whom is the writer of X-Men United and Godzilla King of Monsters, Michael Dougherty. Meh, okay. I'll take it. The other is Mark Verheiden, Battlestar Galactica, the writer and showrunner for Daredevil on Netflix, Heroes. Yeah, that guy's good. That's a win. Sorry, Todoroki. Yeah, Pinhead is pretty scary. I just realized leaving that up there for too long probably wouldn't. And I got to tell you, it was tough finding a picture of Pinhead where he was cropped high enough that you didn't see some of the other even more disturbing things in his costume and look, or any of the other Cenobites around him that are much more disturbing than Pinhead is. But anyway, so if you don't like this sort of body horror stuff, really scary S&M body horror stuff, I would stay away from this series and the movies. But your call. There are still some parts of one of the movies that stays with me in a way that I don't want it to stay with me. But yeah, so good team. I think this is going to work out really well. Luminous, David Gordon Green, not to be confused with David Alan Grier. You know what? I think David Alan Grier is an amazing talent. I don't know that I've ever seen him direct anything. And I certainly don't know that I've ever seen him direct any comedy. But he's a funny dude. So that would be funny. Anyway, no sense right now when this is going to premiere. One, they just announced the director, showrunner. Two, the pandemic. So, Luminous, for a moment, I thought the In Living Color cast had quite the career change. Yeah, well, Jim Carrey has seen some very interesting serious work in his milieu, so yeah, it could happen. I'm just saying. Of course, then he also could be Dr. Robotnik. Skylar, gotta go. See ya. Thanks for stopping by, and hopefully you'll stop by at another show. So, like I was saying, we don't know when this is going to premiere. I'm guessing it's not even likely to be 2021 because of the pandemic. Of nobody shooting anything, so we'll have to see. But moving on to our next topic, and this one I really think this is interesting. Aside from the fact that Heavy Metal is going to create a new comics imprint with the name Virus and launch it while we're all sitting at home because of a virus. Clearly, they were planning on this long before the virus that we're all dealing with was out there. My guess is that the name actually comes from the idea that this is going to be spread digitally, so it's sort of a viral distribution of comic books and comic book titles. But the news is that this new comic imprint, they call it, and platform, so it'll be a digital-only distribution of these new comics. Launched Wednesday, April 29th. All right, then. No, will be launching tomorrow, Wednesday, April 29th. It's the pandemic, folks. It's got my brain. Don't know what day it is. Um, uh, duh, 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 All right, locked its. So that somehow didn't get hidden. Um, have no idea who this person is. If people want to investigate whatever Locked It's is saying, go right ahead. That's your one comment that's not related to the content that we've got in here. You do another one, and I'll just flat out ban you. I really hope that if there's something going wrong with whoever's channel it is that you're complaining about, that people do go find it. But that's not what this is about. So keep the comments related to the topic here or nerdery type stuff. Anyway, good luck to whatever it is you're trying to do. Virus, coming from the folks at Heavy Metal, will feature comic creator owned content, much like Image did back when Image was first formed, from people who were really tired of the industry and the system the way the folks at DC and Marvel did it back in the day. Starting out of the gate will be people like Ron Mars, who worked on Green Lantern, Bob Fingerman from the Indie Comic Minimum Wage, and a lot of other topics. Titles include The Red, Nomobots, Hymn of the Tita, Garbage Factory, and says as well as artwork for Bob Fingerman's upcoming book, Dottie's Inferno. It looks pretty cool. It's interesting to see that they're coming up with their very own digital distribution platform instead of going through Comixology. But my guess is that's because they want to give the comic creators obviously ownership rights to the stuff that they're working and revenue based off the stuff they're working, as opposed to a regular salary or freelance payments. So you couldn't really do that through somebody else's distribution system like Comixology, which is owned by Amazon now. So yeah, tomorrow, check it out. Virus is the name of the distribution platform. And if you're into comics, particularly heavy metal comics, which are pretty on the edge and usually beautiful work, then do check it out. So our next topic is going to be, this is a little hard to explain, and the image that just showed up there is, of course, John Bernthal as Frank Castle, the Punisher. So what it is it's news about Marvel basically changing people involved with some of its television products. So what happened is Marvel announced that they were canceling 2 development deals that they had with 2 showrunners and writers for 2 products. The first one, and the reason the Punisher image is up there, is that it's Steve Lightfoot, who was the showrunner for The Punisher when it was on Netflix. Marvel still had an ongoing development deal with Lightfoot, but they have canceled that. They've canned it. The second one is showrunner Paul, I'm going to butcher his name, Zbyszewski, who was the showrunner for the upcoming series Helstrom, which hasn't come out yet, but apparently is going to. They stopped filming last month before the pandemic shut everybody down, and so they are basically in post-production work, and it is still scheduled to appear at some undetermined date on Hulu. But this guy, Paul Z, I'm going to call him, is no longer going to be doing any further work, so there either won't be another Helstrom series or a continuation of it after the first one, or they will find another showrunner for it. So they've really been, and I'm assuming this has to do with Feige taking over, but they've really been canceling a lot of stuff. A lot of the Hulu series have been canceled. Right now, it's basically down to Helstrom, which supposedly is still coming out, and the animated series MODOK and Hitmonkey that are not on Disney+. All the Disney Plus stuff is still on, well, sort of on schedule. They haven't been canceled. Some of them have been delayed because of shooting, like Falcon and Winter Soldier. We talked about that. So, unfortunately, or possibly fortunately, I mean, I don't know what they're planning on doing with their television work. Luminous, Paul Z is great. You say that because you know him from other stuff. Now I know he did work on Marvel's Agents of Shield, um, but is there other things that you know him from that you like his stuff, or are you joking because you know another Paul Z? Let me know. Anyway, so that's just it's news that Marvel is basically continuing to toss things up in the air when it comes to what's happening with the Marvel television stuff now that Feige is in control of literally everything related to Marvel, which is not a bad thing. I mean, Kevin Feige is, hands down, no question, a production genius. So I don't think it's a bad thing that he's making these changes. I just hope that if he's getting rid of people for whatever particular deals that they had, that he might consider bringing them back on if there's value in having them, actually working in the products that Marvel's going to be putting out going forward. So, moving on to our next topic. And this one was really interesting news because I hadn't heard the complaint about this. So that's an image from the upcoming BBC series, The Watch. We've talked about that quite a number of times before. The Watch is a series based on the Discworld books by Terry Pratchett, and it is centered around the members of the Watch, basically the sort of policing force that is in the Discworld and through most of the connected stories in the Discworld. Turns out, apparently, once this BBC series started, images started coming out of that, the family of Terry Pratchett, who also happens to be involved with his own production company, he founded a production company before he died, called Narrativia, didn't like what they're calling a cyberpunk aesthetic of the upcoming series. They thought it was not at all faithful to the look as described in the books of the Discworld. As a pause, jumping back here, Lumina said, you're talking about Paul Zbyszki? Yes, I'm butchering his name, but that is the guy. He created one of my favorite shows, Daybreak, back in 2006. Interesting. All right, I'll have to take a look at that. Wait a minute, that sounds familiar. Luminous describes it as a cross between a police drama and Groundhog's Day. Okay, all right, I'll take a look at it. But getting back to the news about Discworld and about Terry Pratchett, the news is that Narrativia, which is run by Pratchett's daughter Rihanna, or is a co-director on the production company anyway, has signed a deal with Motive Pictures and Endeavor Content to adapt Pratchett's fantasy novels in a fashion that they describe as, and I quote, truly authentic, prestige adaptations that remain absolutely faithful to his original unique genius. So the upside of this is that we get more Terry Pratchett. I mean, Good Omens, which was co-written with Neil Gaiman, to be sure, was fantastic. So that's great. I mean, getting more Terry Pratchett out there in the television and movie world is wonderful. It's kind of interesting to see this internal battle going on between the people that are associated with adapting his works now. And I'm still very keen on watching The Watch because I'm not tied into the idea that you can't make changes. Lorenzo, welcome to the show, and sorry, I don't know what you said. So I'm going to give it a thumbs up anyway. So I'm not really tied into the idea of how things are supposed to look. I mean, there are some things that you really shouldn't change a whole lot. But, making the setting of a world look a little bit more distressed or cyberpunky or whatever than you think it might from the description, I'm fine with that. I'm very keen on seeing what Denis Villeneuve's production directors and production designers came up with for the overall look of Dune, even beyond the images that we've already seen. And if it doesn't match what what I saw in my head when I read the books, what the David Lynch movie looked like, or what the sci-fi miniseries looked like. That's cool. There's enough room in there for innovation. I'm fine with innovation. But that said, more power to Narrativia and their deal to to get more Terry Pratchett out there. Big thumbs up. Keep doing it. And our next topic is how did that get there? Is a holdover from last week, so we're going to skip over that one. So that is an image of Dr. Aphra from the Star Wars comics. And this is not, in fact, specifically about Dr. Aphra. I just chose that picture because this is about the fact that a new Star Wars series is in the works at Disney Plus, which is going to be run by Leslie Headland, who did the Netflix series Russian Doll, which is a huge hit, massive critical acclaim. Everybody I know who's seen it loves it. I haven't seen it yet. My bad. But it will be a female-centric series that takes place in a different part of the Star Wars timeline than other projects, according to this. So I think this is really cool. I love the idea that we're going to get a female-led series that will play off like The Mandalorian, give us something a little different. Like I said, I don't really think it's going to involve Aphra because, one, that's not a different timeline. We know when these stories are set. And we don't know anything about what these particular stories are. There's been speculation that I've seen since this article came out that it will be post Episode 9, that it will be like the rebuilding of the Jedi, or the world after the sort of Jedi balance has been restored by, spoiler alert-ish, I guess, if anybody hasn't seen or wants to see that movie. Luminous, cool. Yes, I agree. Big cool. So we don't know when this will happen. They just literally, the news came out on Variety, and the reps for Disney and for Leslie Headland didn't confirm it. But apparently it's now been confirmed. But nobody's spoken about what the plans are. So we don't even know when. Again, nobody's making anything because nobody's going to be working together on a set where if you're acting across from somebody, you can't be 6 feet away from them and wearing a mask. Gotcha singer, okay. Okay to you too. So 2022 at the very earliest would be my guess. But I'm willing to wait. I think this is going to be awesome. I'm looking forward to it quite a bit. Oh, wow. So Headland also worked for the TV series. She did About Last Night, or the remake in 2014 of About Last Night. Smilf, Black Monday, and Terriers. Terriers was weird. So I'm looking forward to that. Luminous, yes. Leslie Headland, and yes, Russian Doll. So yeah, it's going to be. It has the potential to be pretty bizarre, and definitely not just a wonderful, mind you, but sort of fan service fest that The Mandalorian is. I love The Mandalorian. That's one of the best things that the Star Wars universe has done in a long time. But it's really pretty much a fan Easter egg extravaganza. With good stories, but still, I don't think that's going to be what is going to be coming out of Leslie Headland, based on what I can tell from her list of works. So I'm pretty excited to see what this is going to be like. And then we're getting into our next to the last story, or article. That, of course, is your friendly neighborhood SpiderMan, Tom Holland from Far From Home, Spider-Man Far From Home. And the news is that Sony has, again, because of the pandemic, kicked the next two Spider-Man related films, the sequel to Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and the third installment of the Spider-Man Tom Holland series down the road, which means that Marvel has had to kick some of its movies down the road, probably because there's some Tom Holland material in there. And there's been a lot of speculation about it may even be because of some of the villains in the Tom Holland. And well, anyway. So, Into the Spider-Verse will now be coming out on October 7th, 2022, instead of April 8th, 2022. So that's getting almost a 6-month kick. The next Spider-Man Tom Holland movie will be November 5th, 2021, instead of July 16th, 2021. So, not a huge jump, but definitely a change. Yeah, Luminous, I'm with you. And Gotcha Singer, I'm assuming that's a sad face or a grumpy face, and I'm with you too. But it's all because of this pandemic, and there's not really anything any of us can do about it. So what that means for Marvel is that literally 2 weeks after announcing the new dates for a whole bunch of movies, 2 of them are going to have to be kicked off yet again, or kicked further down the road yet again. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness and Thor Love and Thunder. So Doctor Strange sequel, which had been moved to November 5th of 2021, has now been kicked all the way to March 25th of 2022. 2022. And Thor Love and Thunder, which had moved to February 18th, 2022, is actually moving up 1 week. February 11th, 2022. Okay. So, bummer. There is one silver lining here. Apparently, that means that the Uncharted live-action movie that Tom Holland has been working on with Sony will actually come out a little early. It moves to July 16th, 2021, which was going to be the date of Spider-Man Homecoming, or the next Spider-Man movie, not Homecoming. So, yeah, bummer. Big time bummer. But not much we can do about it. I'm still very much looking forward to this, and let the speculation videos on YouTube start going crazy, because just because Spider-Man gets moved a little bit, it still didn't get moved to a point where it was overlapping. I don't think. Let me look at those dates again. And even if it did, why does that matter? So Spider-Man 3, Tom Holland 3, November 5th, 2021, and Doctor Strange. Okay, so it's the same. It would have been the same date as Doctor Strange, so I can see why they would need to move Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange was originally supposed to come out on that date, November 5th, 2021. So that's more of a move based on not competing with their own, Marvel properties, as opposed to some sort of plot element, because there's been no indication whatsoever, pardon me, that Spider-Man or any Spider-Man characters have any relation to the Doctor Strange sequel. But that won't stop the conspiracy theorists from speculating about the fact that we're going to see, the Vulture or Norm Osborn or the Dark Avengers or whatever show up in Doctor Strange, and be set up in Spider-Man and show up in Doctor Strange. I'm not buying into that conspiracy theory, even though I just said it, but, it'd be pretty cool if it happened. So anyway, those are your dates. Bummer for us. Understandable. What can you do? All right, moving on to our last topic. And what you see on your screen right there is a photo I took 2014, I think, at DragonCon. And the news is that DragonCon posted just last week that it was still planning on happening, even though cons right before it, like Otakon, have just canceled. And a lot of commenters, not the majority by any stretch, if you look at the post where they made this announcement, there's been like 1.7 thousand, or 1,700 comments, and the vast majority of the breakdown of angry or sad or likes or loves shade to the very positive side. A lot more likes and loves than angry, but there are many people who are very angry about this announcement that they're not deciding to cancel for a couple of reasons. One is nobody knows whether things will be particularly safe at that point, and Dragon Con, as you can see from this picture, is kind of a con where it is impossible to social distance. All cons are. Dragon Con is hands down the worst. This was just a random, and they run like these group shoots on the back of the Hilton, on the steps on the back of the Hilton deck, all the time, all weekend. There are planned group shoots at Dragon Con. This is just one of them, and it happened to be the SpiderMan universe, and then on the other side of the split of the stairs, you can see there's the Captain America universe. That is the comic legend George Perez in the middle with the sunglasses, who happened to just show up while I was there taking pictures of other people around. So I figured I'd better grab this group shot, even though I don't usually do these. And that's typical. That's actually a normal size crowd for any one of these. You get the Overwatch crowd, and they cover both stairs and spill out all over the deck. It's nuts. That's on the outside. This is an example of what the inside is like. That's the Marriott atrium floor. The infamous one that was used in the elevator, the background of the elevator scene in one of the Hunger Games. I can't remember which one. 2, I think. And that is Betty Bloodshed as Lady Loki, doing an awesome job, of course. And you can see the crowds. Very packed. Crowds up in the Pulse loft area is pretty packed. This is 12:40 p.m. right after lunchtime on Sunday. I guarantee that the most of the people you see here were literally partying 6 hours prior to this. That's what Dragon Con is like. That's how crowded it is when the crowds haven't shown up yet. Midnight, it is literally you're like an eel trying to squeeze through, or a salmon trying to squeeze through a salmon run. It's insane. It's impossible to social distance at this con in any way, shape, or form. So a lot of people were complaining, in part because Dragon Con has a no refund policy, and the hotels have no refund policies, and that's a big problem. Dragon Con has said it's looking into offering refunds for people who do not want to attend because they're worried about their safety. It hasn't said it will do that yet. And Dragon Con is literally just pushing the hotel issue off on the hotels. They have said officially we'll talk to them, but that's their decision. There's nothing we can do about it. So this is what we're going to be dealing with, folks, until there's a treatment. We're going to be dealing with people complaining about cons still promoting themselves, complaining about the potential lack of safety going to a con. And Dragon Con may have just been a little bit tone deaf with its treatment of the complaints about this particular announcement. So we'll see what Dragon Con says as it goes further along. Other states are opening up. Atlanta and Georgia is opening up, obviously, if you've been paying attention to the news, earlier than most states out there. They just started it this week at a point where it had its highest rates of COVID patients being hospitalized today. So, who knows what kind of spike or secondary spike will happen in the Atlanta area, which is where Dragon Con is held, as this opening happens. The mayor of Atlanta is not keen on opening anything. Again, we'll have to see how this all plays out. Luminous, yes, I've seen a lot of Instagram stories of drunken crowds at Dragon Con. I've been in those drunken crowds. I've never been one of them. This is like my sad sack story, but I've been to Dragon Con 5 years, and in those 5 years I've had 3 drinks. because I'm working. I'm shooting all the time, taking photographs from when I get there to when I literally have to leave because I'm too tired at like 1 in the morning. Not because there aren't people to take pictures of. And yes, they are. Some of them are drunk all the time. Some of them are particularly drunk, late in the day. And it's insane. I was trying to find an example of what midnight on Saturday night on this Marriott Atrium floor was, and I couldn't find it because I couldn't remember what year I took a picture of it. But it was a picture of Yaya Han when she was in this something Queen, and I can't remember what it's from, League or something like that, character, where she was on slight stilts, so she was up maybe 2 feet, so she's pretty short, but that still put her at like almost 7 feet. And the crowds around her were just crazy. She had assistants who were trying to open up the space around her to try to get people out of the way so she could move through pleasantly, gently. She did they did a good job. But it was just nuts. Just insane sea of people. Sadly, I couldn't find that one. So I figured I'd show how insanely crowded it was right around noontime on like the third day, a slow Sunday. So, but anyway, we'll see what DragonCon has to say. We'll see what other cons are saying about stuff. So that's our last topic, folks. We're done in a little over a half an hour. Thank you all for chatting with us on the chatting with me on the chat on YouTube, and we will see you guys next week. We'll continue to try to do other live stuff. Like I said, I'm working on my second sort of bokeh boomer talk about photography, con photography subject. And we're working on more cosplay, costume profiles, and so we'll have those up, as well as soon we'll have the first of a bunch of retrospective slideshow galleries that I'm making from recent cons, so that you can actually go to YouTube and just sort of sit there and listen to some funky rock or jazz music while watching the slideshow of all sorts of cool cosplay drift by you from most recent PAX East and Aresia and Super Megafest and things like that. So, again, thanks, folks, for stopping by. We will see you next week. Stay safe. Wash them hands, blah, blah, blah. You've all heard it. Do it. And we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.